Hello, lovies. It's that time again. Hope you've got your cup of tea. We're going to be talking about forcing kids to go to school tonight. We had a meeting on Friday, and I really think that the school is still not getting it. So I thought I would talk about it today. So today's title is When Forcing School Attendance Hurts. Rethinking Just Get Them In. So welcome to today's episode. If you've ever stood at the front door in the morning with a child who's sobbing, shaking, clinging to the banister, begging you not to make them go to school, this episode is for you. If you've ever walked away from that scene and cried in the car or in the kitchen, wondering, am I a terrible parent if I don't force them? Am I a terrible parent if I do? This episode is for you as well. Today we're talking about what actually happens when we try to force a child into school and how some very common beliefs in our system can quietly make things worse instead of better. I'm drawing heavily on a brilliant piece of work from the Barriers to Education project, where they explore the beliefs that can actually exacerbate attendance difficulties rather than solve them. We're going to take those beliefs, unwrap them gently, and turn them into something more compassionate, more honest, and much safer for children and their families. So get your cuppa ready, take a breath, and let's walk through this together. So let's call this the front door battle. I want you to imagine a morning. The uniform is ready, the packed lunch is done, the clock is ticking, your child is not downstairs. You call up, no answer. You finally find them curled up in bed or hiding behind the sofa or pacing the hallway with that glazed, panicky look in their eyes. You say things like, come on, we're going to be late. You have to go, you know you'll be fine once you're there. You went yesterday, you can do it again. And maybe underneath it all, underneath that, there's a quieter voice in your own head saying, if they don't go in, I'll get in trouble. If they don't go in, their future is ruined. And if they don't go in, it means I've failed as a parent. All of those fears are real, and you're not a bad parent for having them. But what the team at Barriers to Education have found from listening to lots of young people and their families is that the way we respond to these moments is often driven by beliefs that simply aren't true. And those beliefs can make attendance difficulties even harder to untangle. Let's talk about 4 of those beliefs and why just force them is far more dangerous than it sounds. Belief 1. They're choosing not to go to school. The first belief is this. Young people are choosing not to go to school. It sounds logical on the surface, doesn't it? They're not in the building, they're at home, so they must be choosing that. But when Barriers to Education listened to young people, a very different picture emerged. They found that most young people actually want to be in school. They want the friendships, the routine, the learning, but they're struggling in that environment so much that their being there becomes overwhelming, unbearable, or simply impossible. Non-attendance is often not a cheeky decision, it's a last resort. Think of it like this. If your child developed a severe allergy and every time they walked into a particular room, their body reacted violently, you wouldn't say they were choosing to avoid that room. You'd say their body was protecting them. For many young people, school isn't just a bit stressful, it's sensory overload, constant social threat, fear of bullying, unmanageable demands, masking all day to appear fine. Their nervous system is screaming danger, even if from the outside adults are saying it's just school. When we frame it as a choice, the solutions we reach for are things like punishment, pressure, fines, and tough love. But if a child's body and brain are in survival mode, those measures don't fix anything. They just add another layer of fear. So the first big reframe is this: my child won't becomes my child can't, at least not in the way things are right now. That shift alone can completely change how we respond. Belief 2. If we don't get them back, their anxiety will get worse. The second belief is everywhere in attendance discussions. Anxious pupils need to get back to school as soon as possible because the longer they're out, the worse their anxiety will get. The idea is often explained using an anxiety cycle. The child is anxious about school. They stay home and feel short-term relief. The brain learns that staying home equals safety. So the anxiety grows and it feels even harder to go back. Now, that model can be accurate for certain situations. For example, a specific phobia where the fear is irrational and the environment itself is safe. But as barriers to education point out, when professionals apply this model to school attendance, they sometimes ignore a crucial piece of information. What if the environment isn't safe for the young person? What if the anxiety isn't irrational at all? What if they're being bullied, they're constantly sanctioned or shamed, the sensory environment is painful, they're masking so hard they come home and collapse, or their mental health has already been pushed past breaking points? In those situations, pushing a child straight back into school without understanding and addressing those underlying issues can be like forcing someone back into a burning building and telling them it's for their own good. Barriers to education note that many young people describe non-attendance as a reasonable response to a situation where their needs aren't being met, not a random fear, but self-protection. Some families have shared deeply painful stories about what happened when professionals insisted on forcing quick returns at any cost. In a few cases, young people reached a point where life felt so unbearable that they no longer wanted to be here at all. That is the extreme edge of this conversation, and if anything, I'm softening how stark those stories are, but it's important to say out loud. The stakes are that high. So instead of the line, the longer they're out of school, the worse the anxiety will get, we might try the longer we leave the causes of their distress unaddressed, the worse their anxiety will get. The problem isn't the child being at home. The problem is the pain they experience when they're in school. Belief 3. Home should be made less desirable. The third belief is one that quietly creeps into guidance and training. Home should remain less desirable, so children are pushed into school. You might have heard professionals talking about push and pull factors. Push factors are the things that encourage attendance. Pull factors are things that make staying at home more appealing. I literally tried to bribe my daughter to go to school because I was being told that she needed to be in and she needed to be in and she needed to be in. And like I said to her, oh, if you manage this week, we'll get you this. If you manage a few days, we'll get you that. And it was just like the worst thing that I could have done because I was pushing her to try. I was bribing her, you know. So like the suggested solution is often increase the push and decrease the pull. In practice, that can look like no TV, internet or devices if they don't attend. No hobbies, no clubs, no fun. Keeping them in their room all day. Being advised to make home life uncomfortable so school looks better by comparison. I mean, I was even told to take my daughter to see some specialist provisions so she realised being where she is would be better. You know, on paper, it sounds like behaviour management. In real life, for a lot of children, home is the only place they feel remotely safe. Barriers to education highlight that when parents are encouraged to strip away everything that makes home feel secure and soothing, three things can happen. The child loses their one safe base. Their overall stress levels shoot up even more. The relationship between parent and child becomes adversarial. You're the enemy who took my safe place. I mean, I was having arguments with her about going to school, telling her that she was so lucky to be at the school that she was at, and you know, it was like this isn't fair. Her needs weren't being met. Everything she expressed, like the noise, the big, you know, the too many kids together in one room, being laughed at, and like all the things that she was going through, it was like they were saying that she was just making it up. She's just got to get to school and, you know, keep going. And I pushed her because I was being told by people, these professional people that I thought they knew what they was on about. And it just, you know, the meeting that I had last week on Friday, I just couldn't believe it. It was like she was trying to explain herself, and then this bloke who I don't think he even has a clue, not one clue, because he just kept asking her, do you think you could be able to come to school? You need to be in school. When do you think you'll be back again? When are you going to be in school? And in the meeting, I was speaking up, saying to my daughter, she wouldn't come for the meeting because she just can't even be at the school. And like I was saying, you know, you've got to explain how it makes you feel being at school. And because she's learned to people please and she finds it hard to express her feelings, she was just like, it makes me feel overwhelmed. Like, it makes me feel really bad. And then it asked the same question again. So do you think you'll be able to come into school? And by the time I got home after that meeting, she was in such a state that I'm just like really angry with them now. I asked to deregister and pull her out, and I was told to wait so they could sort things out. They're not sorting things out. They just want her there. She doesn't want to be there. But anyway, it was causing friction between us. Like, we were having arguments because I'm trying to make her go to school and she just didn't want to be there. And anyone that's going through this, you know, listen to your child, because that's what matters. So anyway, like, because the relationship was becoming adversarial, and like, you know, I was going to be seen as the enemy. But like, if you take all the things away from them at home, then their safe place is gone too. So a child who has no safe base doesn't magically be able to become like more able to face a terrifying environment. They just become more distressed, more traumatized, and often less able to cope with anything at all, let alone school. If we want children to manage a difficult environment, they need more safety somewhere, not less. So instead of make home so boring they'd rather be in school, we might say we keep home as their sanctuary and use that safety as the foundation for slow, supported steps towards education. whatever that ends up looking like. We've been asking for my daughter to be homeschooled for quite a while. And all they keep saying is, no, we don't do that. No, we don't do that. Now, it was done in COVID, but they're just like, I don't know, just not willing to help in that way. But anyway, and like belief 4, it's a parenting problem. So the 4th belief may be the most painful for families. If a child isn't attending, it's down to lack of discipline or poor parenting. Barriers to education share that many families feel judged, blamed, or dismissed when they ask for help. Like I say, we ask so many times for help. We even asked about putting a year back to be with someone that she actually got on with. But thing is, none of this happened, and they won't let her do homeschooling, so we are where we are. So, like, barriers to education share that many families feel judged, blamed, or dismissed. Like I just said that we were, dismissed. And we did ask for help. But parents who are absolutely exhausted from trying everything are sometimes told they're not being firm enough, or are sent on generic parenting courses. It was referred to as tough love. When I was forcing my daughter to go into school, it was like, well, at least she's here. And it's like, they didn't realise how harsh I'd have to be to get her to come to school, which is just wrong. I mean, like, when it happens, there can be set, so they send you on a parenting course. I mean, that focuses on surface behaviour rather than the child's distress. One phrase that you might have heard is, they're fine in school. It must be something you're doing at home. But the project points out something crucial here. Often when a young person looks fine in school and then completely unravels at home, it's not because home is a problem. It's because home is the only safe place they feel safe enough to show how bad things really are. The apparent fine in school can be masking, people-pleasing, fawning to stay out of trouble, hiding symptoms of anxiety, ADHD, trauma, or other needs. Then the moment they get back through the front door, the dam breaks. So what looks to professionals like 2 different kids, well behaved at school and out of control at home, it might actually mean this child cannot safely express distress at school. So it all spills out where they finally feel secure at home. That's not a parenting failure, that's a nervous system trying to survive. Parents in the barriers to education casework describe being told to be stricter, to just get him in, to treat paralysing anxiety as naughtiness, and some later realised that following this advice caused deep trauma and broke trust with their child. So instead of what's wrong with parenting, the more accurate question is, what is the child trying to tell us about their experience of school? And how can we work with their parents and not against them? So what forcing feels like from the inside. So let's zoom in right now. Forget policies, forget letters, forget attendance targets. I want you to picture the inside of one child's experience on a forcing morning. So their heart is racing, their stomach aches, they didn't sleep properly, they're already replaying yesterday's humiliation, the noise, the corridor, the shouting, that teacher, that group of kids. Every cell in their body is yelling no. Then an adult, often the person they love most, is physically pulling them towards the car or threatening them with punishments or telling them their life will be ruined if they don't go. To the adult, they are encouraging attendance. To the child's nervous system, they are being overpowered by someone bigger and stronger, and losing their sense of safety. That experience can create even more trauma around school, trauma around mornings in general, and sometimes trauma in the parent-child relationship itself. And it's so important to say this with no shame. If you've been in that situation and you forced, shouted, dragged or begged, you were trying to survive too. You were acting from fear, from pressure, from the messages you've been given. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I really am. Arguing with her about being at school because, but this isn't about blaming parents. It's about changing the messages so everyone has better options. So, a different lens. Attendance as a signal, not a sin. So if forcing doesn't work and can in fact be dangerous, what do we do instead? Drawing on the ideas from the barriers to education, let's try a different lens. Treat attendance as a signal of distress, not a behaviour to crush. If a child is finding it impossible to attend, that is information. Instead of how do we make them go, ask, what is this telling us about their experience of school and their mental health, their needs? Start from well-being first. No child can learn while their nervous system is in constant fight, fly or shut down. That means safety, calm and connection come before attendance figures. Reducing harm in the environment is as important as any return plan. Sometimes a period of recovery and repair at home is actually the most sensible step. Protect home as a safe base, rather than turning home into a battleground. Keep your relationship with your child at the centre. Allow comfort, joy and connection, even when attendance is low. Hold realistic boundaries, yes, but don't deliberately make them miserable in the name of motivation. A regulated child with a strong bond to their parent is far more able to move towards any kind of education than a child who feels punished in the one place they should feel safe. Listen to the details of their experience. Instead of big questions like, why won't you go? Try gentler, more specific ones. What part of the day feels the hardest? When do you start to feel sick or panicky? Is there a place in school where your body feels even a tiny bit safer? Take what they say seriously, even if you don't fully understand it. Challenge unhelpful beliefs when you meet them. When professionals say things like, they're fine once they're in, you just need to be firmer. Make home less comfortable. It's okay to reply with, we're noticing a high level of distress before and after school that tells us they're not actually fine. We're concerned that forcing is traumatising them, and we need a plan that protects their mental health. Home is their only safe space right now. We'd like to work on reducing stress in school instead of punishing them at home. You're not being difficult, you're advocating. So for any professionals who are listening, if you work in education, social care or health, and you're hearing this, I want to say this gently. You are often just as trapped in the system as families are. You're being squeezed by attendance targets, inspection frameworks and guidance that may not yet have caught up with the lived reality of neurodivergent and traumatised children. But you do have power in the micro moments. You can stop using language that frames children as willfully defiant when they're distressed. Refrain from advising parents to force them in or make home less desirable. Recognise that fine in school, meltdowns at home is a big red flag for masking, not bad parenting. Insist that any attendance plan is built around well-being, not in opposition to it. Every time you say, what is this child telling us about their environment, instead of how do we make them comply, You chip away at the old belief system. So if you're a parent in the middle of this right now, so if you've got a lump in your throat because this is your daily life, I want to speak directly to you. You're not lazy, you're not weak, you're not failing because you can't physically wrestle your child into a building their whole body is terrified of. You are reading the signals your child is sending you. You are seeing what the professionals are missing. And you're brave enough to say, something's wrong here, even when everyone around you is chanting, just get them in. It is okay to press pause on forcing, ask for a review, a meeting, an assessment, and make sure it's around your child's needs. Make sure that the people in the meeting are actually listening to what your child is saying or dismissing them, and pull them up on that and say we need to look at it differently. Prioritise your child's mental health over other people's attendance spreadsheets. If anything in this episode has brought up big feelings for you or your child, please remember this podcast is not a crisis service. If you're worried about their safety or your own, please reach out to your GP, mental health services or emergency support in your area. You do not have to hold this alone. So to wrap up, let's circle back to those 4 beliefs from the barriers to education work. They're choosing not to go. We must get them back quickly or anxiety will get worse. Home should be made less desirable. It's a lack of parenting or discipline. When we really listen to young people and their families, a different truth emerges. Most children would rather be in a school that feels safe and manageable. Anxiety grows when the causes of distress are ignored, not simply because a child is at home. Home needs to stay a safe base, not become another battleground. Parents are usually fighting harder than anyone to find a way through. Forcing a child into school doesn't magically fix any of that, but compassion, curiosity, and honesty about the environment they're facing, that's where real change begins. Thank you for listening today, for keeping your heart open, and for caring about the children who are struggling behind those attendance codes. If this episode resonated with you, you might want to explore the Barriers to Education website, especially their resources on beliefs around attendance and their warmth framework for putting well-being first in education. Take care of yourself, take care of your nervous system, and I'll speak to you in the next episode.